Uh, my name is Dr.Disari Roy. Currently, I am serving as an assistant professor in the Department of Women's Studies, Diamond Harbour Women's University. So today, I am decided to speak on a topic which is the rights of, which is based on the rights of sexual minorities. And my topic is actually titled "Challenging the Binaries and Heteronormativity." So I begin with the topic. Speaking about binaries, heteronormativity, I have to focus on sexual minorities. Now, what do we mean by sexual minorities? Let me first try to elucidate this point. Sexual minorities basically refers to a group of people or a class of people whose whose sexual feelings, sexual orientation, sexual practices differs from the majority of the human population in a society, in our society. The term sexual minorities includes gay, lesbian, bisexual, hetero, and transgender individuals. A lesbian is a homosexual woman, a gay is a homosexual man, a bisexual is a person who is bisexual in nature means that the person is attracted to both the sexes, both male and females and female. By hetero and or transgender, we mean that basically the assigned sex at the time of birth. In case of hetero, the assigned sex at the time of birth is male, but that person feels deep inside like a female. So that is the gender identity. It holds the same for transgender as well, because it holds the same for transgender as well, because transgender refers to an umbrella term for people whose gender identity is the opposite of their assigned sex. In our mind, we have been conditioned to think that there exists two types of sexes. One is male, another one is female. And we have also been conditioned to think that heterosexual relationship or heteroromance or relationship between man and a woman, the male-female relationship, is the only normal relationship, and that is the preferred mode of sexual conduct. So this is the basic concept of heteronormativity. When we're talking about binary, as I said, we have been conditioned in our mind to think that only male, female, these two kinds of gender exist in this planet Earth. So people who has been born with their assigned sex as male or female, and they identify themselves with their assigned sex at the time of birth, are referred to as binary or cisgender, and this is regarded as the only normal sexuality. Anything which is beyond this is termed as non-binary, and a non-binary is something which is different from the normal. It is not looked upon as the preferred or as the normal mode of sexual conduct. Coming to gender identity, let us now learn that who first coined this term gender identity and what it actually means. The term gender identity was coined by Robert Stoller in the year 1964. It actually refers to an individual's personal concept about their gender and how they feel deep inside. It is a kind of feeling that comes from within, from inside, from within your heart, and there is no way that it is imposed or influenced by any external forces. To explain this, I can say, for example, if I take my case, I have been born with the female sex, and all my life I have believed myself to be a female, and this is my gender identity. Means my gender identity and the sex which has been assigned to me by birth or at the time of birth, there has been no conflict. There has not been any conflict or any clashes between my assigned sex at the time of birth and between the way I feel about my gender. So hence my gender identity matches with the sex that I have assigned with at the time of birth. So this is gender identity. But in many cases, a mismatch occurs. Gender identity and the assigned sex does not match. A person, an individual may be born with the male sex, but deep inside that individual male person may feel like a woman. So in that case, there is a conflict, there is a clash between the assigned sex at the time of birth and between that individual's gender identity. So hence, gender identity in this manner, it is different from sexual orientation. And now coming to heteronormativity, I'll say that heteronormativity is the idea that binary gender identity and heterosexual relationships are the norm. It can assign strict gender roles, male-female gender roles. Now, what are gender roles and who ascribes these gender roles? Well, in this connection, I can say that gender roles are roles that are created by the society, established by the society at large. These are the gender roles are the product of socio-cultural norms. Gender role is the way by which an individual is expected to talk, act, present themselves, behave, dress up, and conduct themselves before others. For example, we expect girls to have we expect girls to be feminine in character and to have long hair. We expect girls to remain engaged in household chores like cooking, washing, etc. At the same time, we expect women. At the same time, we also expect that women will be caring, pious, they will be pure, they will be domestic in nature, they will be loving, caring, emotional, docile. So these are the few adjectives which we normally assign to the female sex. In the similar manner, few tasks and few adjectives are assigned for the male sex. What are those? Now, tasks such as the public sphere power, the power to go out, work, and earn money, and because of that financial power, the male is in a position to exert complete influence, complete authority in the family, right? We also expect men to be rough, to be tough, to be aggressive. We do not expect men to be emotional, and we feel that men are always very rational. They do not think emotionally, they do not think in irrational manner. Now coming to some of the traits, these are some of the traits or characteristics. Some other are like the way a male is expected to dress up. Then we expect men to have short hair, right? Short cropped hair. So these are the things. So these are some of the attributes coming regarding work, regarding habits, regarding features or characteristics which we are assigning to a particular sex on the basis not of their skills or abilities but on the basis of their gender. So this is what is meant by gender role. And the very concept of heteronormativity can impose strict gender roles. To elucidate this point, I like to say, see this romance or any kind of relationship, it can be romantic, it can be sexual, emotional relationship between a boy and a girl, a man and a woman, is the one we see is always highlighted, where in movies, in serials, everywhere. Even if we see some of the animated series, cartoons, some of the most famous characters, say for example Rapunzel, Cinderella, Snow White and all, we will see that there is always a beautiful prince and sometimes the there is always a beautiful princess who is falling into danger, right, has been captured, kidnapped by some evil forces, by some evil people. So then the beautiful princess is being portrayed as a damsel in distress who is inevitably rescued by a handsome prince. They meet, they fall in love at first sight. It is most in most of the cases it is love at first sight for them, and then it's happily ever after, right? So what happens in this case? So what basically happens in this case is that so we see that how this particular concept of heteronormativity is being made normal, is being portrayed in different manners, so as in order that this very idea is ingrained, it is instilled in our minds. And we know that children grow up watching these cartoons, these animated series, right? And what happens in that case is that when children are from a very young age exposed to this very concept of heteroromance, right, what happens at that time? It leaves a very long lasting impact, right? So this everything we know, so we see that gender, that is why we say that while sex is a biological construct, gender at the same time is a social and a cultural construct. We learn about this even in the writings of the famous French philosopher and feminist Simone de Beauvoir, who in her treatise published in the year 1949, that the treatise is titled Second Sex, who in this book where Beauvoir says that women have always been treated as the other, as secondary citizen, not given much importance, faced lots of discrimination and exploitation in comparison to men, and and they have always been. This very concept of womanhood or femininity is a cultural construct, and it is a social, and it is also a social construct. If we go by the writings of Mary Wollstonecraft, the famous first wave feminist, who in the book of Vindication on the Rights of Women, published in the year 1792, says that there is no such thing as sexual virtues. If a man can be aggressive, a woman can also be aggressive. If a girl can be emotional, can be irrational, then men too can act in emotional and irrational ways and in irrational manner. And then men can also act in I feel in like irrationally or in a very emotional manner sometimes, right? So there is no such thing as sexual virtues, and there is no reason as to why particular virtues will have to be attributed to a particular sex, right? These are all the attempts made by this patriarchal society to keep us in the gendered place and to keep women in a situation of tyranny, of domination. Under the dominance of whom? Under the dominance of men. And going by Judith Butler, a very well-known, profoundly acclaimed academician as well as feminist, she is currently the professor of political science at the University of Berkeley, California, USA, where Judith Butler has also said in the book 1990 Gender Trouble that gender is nothing but gender is performative. We are acting on the basis of our gender. I am female, so I will be a very loving, caring, emotional, and I will be taking care of all the household chores. I will follow the so-called social norms, because as long as I'm abiding by the norms, as long as I'm engaging in the kind of relationship which society considers to be normal, that is the heterosexual relationship, society is absolutely okay with it. So I am not flouting any of the norms. So I belong to the binary group, right? But but if I try to break that kind of convention, break that kind of rule, and I become gay, lesbian, whatever, and then I fall in the ambit of non-binary people, and then it would mean that I'm not living up to the expectation of this society, because I'm flouting the norms of the society, the social norms, the cultural norms. So we are always in a state of performance. We are always giving our performance on the basis of the script. And what is the script here? Script here refers to the norms, to the values that has been established by this patriarchal society, by this highly patriarchal and heteronormative society. Actually, queer theory, now if I come to queer theory, Judith Butler was a very renowned and follower of this theory, or a very renowned theorist. Judith Butler is a very renowned queer theorist. So what actually queer theory tries to do is, queer theory tries to challenge this very norm that there exist only two kinds of gender in this earth, male and the female, and that heteronormative relationships are the only preferred or the normal mode of sexual conduct. So these ideas or these norms are something that queer theory challenges and tries to break free from that. Now, queer is also an umbrella term used for people belonging to LGBTQ community, LGBTQT community, that is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. This term queer was made popular in the 1990s in the academia. Having said this, I would like to say that that sexual minorities, they too have a right to live life free from discrimination, exploitation, as we know that the principle of gender equality is enshrined in the Indian Constitution, and where every person has the right to live where every person have the right to enjoy basic human rights and fundamental freedoms. The basic right includes freedom from all sorts of exploitation, discrimination, right to equality before law, right to life, liberty, and security of person. So all people, irrespective of their SOGI, that is the sexual orientation and gender identity, have the right to enjoy the basic rights which are enshrined in the Indian Constitution as well as some of the international covenants. But we see that in spite of this violation, discrimination against sexual minorities do take place. If we take the example of Section 377 of the British Colonial Indian Penal Code, then we will see that according to that particular act, that is Section 377 of the British Colonial Penal Code, it actually criminalized sexual any kind of sexual activity that was against the law of nature. So by this particular verdict, it actually implied that that people who were indulging in homosexual activity, they were also kind of prosecuted. So this is as per Section 377 of IPC. In 2018, Section 377 of IPC was ruled unconstitutional by India's Supreme Court. So in spite of this historic verdict, and in spite of the fact that rights of the sexual minorities have been granted by the international covenants as well as by our Indian Constitution, these people who are belonging to this people who belong to this group of sexual minorities, they still encounter bullying, violence, workplace discrimination that affects their mental health, their physical health profoundly. So it is important that this discrimination has to end, and for this the mindset of the society at large has to change. It is important for sexual minorities to be considered first and foremost as human beings. As human beings, they must be allowed to have access to all the constitutional rights, freedoms without any kind of gender-based or sexual-oriented discrimination. So that was my topic for today. I hope you will. I hope I have been able to enlighten some of you, at least few people, about this particular topic, which was regarding sexual minorities. Titled the topic as "Challenging the Binaries and the Concept of Heteronormativity." Thank you.